Welcome back to another episode of Sexy Marriage Radio alongside my wife, Pam.
Always good to be here.
This is one of those episodes that's going to be fun, Pam, because this is an email that came in from a wife who is post-menopause, and it has impacted their sex life.
No surprise there.
Kind of hits home in some ways.
No surprise there.
That is what happens as we age. So I'm just going to jump right in. This is from a wife. I've been in post-menopause for 2 years now and have worked closely with health professionals to monitor my hormone replacement therapy like estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone. I'm happily married and used to have orgasms 3 out of the 4 times of having sex, and we were both very happy with our sex life. Since menopause, I'm struggling greatly to have orgasms, and I don't know if it's the HRT. The other factor in this is my libido is now through the roof. I've become the spouse with a higher demand, and this in turn has probably put too much stress on my husband sexually. We do also have lots of stress with a son that's addicted to marijuana, and so lots of stress for the last 2.5 years. My libido is crazier than ever, and I can't figure out if it's because I can't have as much sex with our stress, or because my orgasms are out of reach, or if it's the artificial HRT making me crazy. I've been told not to focus on the orgasm, and that works once in a while, but I'm struggling to come to acceptance of lesser pleasure with good relational connection, with the thought that maybe my orgasm is broken forever. Have you had listeners with a similar problem? I feel like a weirdo. Thanks. Well, first off, she's not a weirdo.
No.
Not at all. Things have definitely changed. And so here's one of the themes I want to use as this conversation goes today, Pam, is we have a tendency as humans to compare our current with our past, and any diversion of that and difference of that, we think there's something majorly wrong oftentimes, right? Like I'm broken because it doesn't work like it used to, or because I'm not what I used to.
Or we just miss it so much.
Fair, but we're comparing it to something that once was, rather than realizing we are constantly evolving. We are constantly shifting and morphing and growing and maturing one way or another. And we can be growing up or growing down. I mean, it's what happens as humans. And so one of the struggles we get is when you have elements like this, when these forces collide, because she's got 3 main forces that are colliding. One is the biology has changed from what's once was to what is now. Yep. And that's a very common thing that happens as we age. And menopause, for sure, with women will impact that.
Yep.
Right. The other thing is pressure dynamics, because now they have a different system pressure, where it sounds like from what I'm reading in her email, she used to be the lower desire. Now she's the one that's doing the pressuring.
She's the higher desire.
I'm kind of jumping to that conclusion based on her terminology, but that seems logical that now she's the one that's putting a little different pressure. And when we play different roles in a system that we've known, man, it really does cause an upheaval.
Well, yeah. And it sounds like there's pressure a couple ways. I mean, if she's the higher desire, she's wanting it more, but she's also putting pressure on herself to actually achieve that orgasm. So it's kind of twofold.
And depending on his involvement in her orgasms, pressure on him to satisfy what once was maybe a much easier to have happen. Mm-hmm. And now it's not easy. Maybe arousal's easy, but the reaching climax isn't, so it's just now all of a sudden they're both thrown into this performance anxiety that can just thrive when there's shifts and adjustments that happen because of life. And then the last one is just a chronic stress. I mean, if they're talking about they have a son with a drug issue, that impacts a marriage, that impacts sex, whether we like it or not. Stress will invade us because it's sometimes very difficult. We can do one-offs as escapes with our sex lives of like, I want to escape from the world with you and enjoy sex because it's a quick escape. But if it's a chronic, ongoing thing, that's a different kind of pressure that it applies as well. And so one of the things to realize in this as we start this is their job is not to chase an old version of their sex life, because that sounds like that's what they're trying to compare it to.
Potentially, yeah. Yeah.
And so instead, it's to grow up how you're doing sex now, which she's on the right track already of they've tried to just kind of not focus on the orgasm as much, because some of what you're going to hear in this episode is going to be along those same lines of how do you look at the whole process, not just the goal, and you make a different goal rather than the orgasm being the goal.
Okay.
Okay. And then you create a better sex by becoming a steadier, more curious, more adjusting spouse. When we realize how much more flexible we are with things, we grow our capacities to then achieve some of the things we're trying to get. Does that make sense? I'm watching your face here.
Well, I'm thinking through it. It sounds very high level book oriented. I'm like, what does that
It
actually
is.
look
Well,
like?
so it's like this, okay, this is the reliable way I know that I can make this happen. And then all of a sudden I have to figure something else out that I've not experienced before, but I still want a good, pleasurable result. Well, when I realize I'm capable, here's a classic example is a couple that's having sex and it gets interrupted. A kid knocks on the door, somebody loses their connection or an erection or whatever, and they both settle down in that moment and then realize, hold on a second, we can pick back up and go a different way because our pattern has now changed from what used to be the reliable we start, we finish. Now all of a sudden we've got a detour that's happened. And when you realize, wait, I am capable of doing that and adjusting, I actually get to experience a place I've not gone before, even though it's going to be very similar feeling. It's a place I haven't done before because we haven't had that experience of getting there that way yet.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So the dog jumps on the bed, and instead of just getting mad at the dog or whatever,
Right.
reposition, get back into it.
Right. And then you start proving to yourself, wait, I can steer this where I want it to go. It's not just the biology only. It's also, hold on a second, we can switch it. We can back up. We can speak up. We can try something we've never tried before. These are things, if we look at the arc of our life, we've all done this. We just don't often apply it when we start getting frustrated about something. We don't settle down and wait a second. We've done this. We've had to go through some of these experiences before. What worked? What strength did we have here? What curiosities did we have? We start relying on some patterns we've had, and then we can find new ways to go through this. Okay. So just as a quick medical caveat, kudos to her on continuing to work with her medical professionals because that's where that needs to stay. This is not what we're going to try to cover.
Well, we're not medical
professionals. Yeah, we are not MDs. I don't have any psychopharmacological degree or training in my schooling. So it's stay in close loops with your prescribers and the ones that are monitoring because that helps you get your levels right because everything is about levels.
And that piece is hard too, because it's not like you can start the testosterone therapy and right away over time, right? I mean, it takes time to figure that out. It sounds like she's been working on this for a little while. But for those of you that maybe haven't done any of the hormone, whether it be estrogen or testosterone, it's not like it's an overnight, oh, I see a difference. Yeah. It takes a while for it to kick in.
Yeah, these chemicals take a while to blend in and start doing what they're supposed to do on a sustained level. Because you can get a placebo effect at the beginning, which is common in the medical world, where your brain kicks in and like, oh, look at it, but then it has to level off, and then you start finding what is the tuning of it. And that's where I want to land on her statement of, first off, you are not broken. This is just a system that's retuning. Both her sexual system and their marital system has to be retuned because it's out of what used to be. It's not as reliable. And so it's realizing, how do I retune to face what the landscape looks like now? Okay. The other thing is you treat this as not as a mission, but kind of as more practice arcs of what can I learn about me and us in these moments too. So it's not necessarily I'm going to just try to focus on the pleasure or the connection without the orgasm as a result and goal. I'm going to try to focus on an experience to see what I learn about me and us together. So it's just a slight retune of that.
Okay. So how do you go about doing that? How do you retune or even figure out what you need to retune in her situation to get to that point?
You start looking at
having orgasm or what?
Well, okay. So instead of how do I get this back, it's how do I go down a path together where we become the kind of spouses that can figure out reliable patterns, reliable arousal paths, reliable connection moments. And I need multiples of those because sometimes one thing won't work.
Paths?
Yeah, because there's an element of, if you've been married any length of time, most couples know the reliable path to achieve the goal when it comes to their sex life.
Or we know what we used to have as a reliable path.
So now when we hit these roadblocks, if you will, or these hurdles that come up because circumstances change, then you start looking at, how do I look at this through a lens of discovery and curiosity and creativity together? Rather than, well, this isn't working, and you throw your hands up, right? I mean, it's all in how we face it that allows a difference in what we do with it. And this is where I have to get better and not relying on my spouse as much on how are they tuning into this, more so how am I? And then when we can have some curiosity together, man, that's a different kind of fuel.
If they were in your office, would you ask them, you know, because she brought up the stress that's going on with their son. Would you dive into or ask the question about how the two of them are relating to one another? Are they on the same page on how they're dealing with their son during this?
That's a huge component of it, because do they have similar meanings, enough of an overlap, and how it is impacting each of them and what they want for their son and how to approach that kind of a dilemma? Because sometimes what happens, one partner has a much more quote unquote strict way they want to handle that because that's their upbringing or that's just the way they deal with life. It's real cut and dry. Whereas the other has a little bit more compassionate, which can be interpreted as you're just letting them get away with everything, you know? And so it's just, how do you have a conversation to realize we may see nuances of that journey differently, but we are aligned largely on what we want to have happen and what we may need to do in response to what happens, depending on the age of the child, depending on the severity, depending on our options, right? Because you get caught in some situations that there's no really good answers or choices, but are we aligned as much as we can on the best bad choices we got?
Yeah. When she brought that up, that it just made me curious if they are aligned on it, if they're not, because that just hypothesis here, that could be something that would get in the way of the bedroom.
Yeah, because one of them could be looking at it as this is a chance that I want to escape from it. And the other is looking at it as I want to make sure we're connected and on the same team.
And if I don't feel connected to you because we're not on the same team here, that could affect.
Can I let my guard down enough with you? Can I be free with you? Can I, so there's elements of how all of this invades. And it's not just when we get into these big stressful things with children and some bigger issues like this. This happens in all kinds of issues, during a rough season at work, dealing with aging parents, financial circumstances, that the economy has shifted. And there could be listeners that they haven't had a paycheck in a while as we're currently airing this episode. Yeah. And all of that can really start to impact things. And you start wondering, why is this not as fulfilling as it once was? Well, because our life is not compartmentalized.
Yeah, it all
everything feeds into everything.
Bleeds into other areas.
Sometimes just having a way to have dialogue about that is a huge plus that can then spill into the bedroom, because the outside spills into the bedroom in negative ways. Well, you can also have the outside spill into it in a positive way. And that's just the idea of how do I get these resets, if you will, when you're having an opportunity to have a sexual encounter. How do you each be a little more clear about what you're looking for in that moment, right? What level of sex are we looking for here? I mean, we've got an old listener that's still around. I mean, they still listen regularly, and they would use I'm at about a 4 on interest. Where are you? And that's it's just the kind of energy I got to bring to the experience, or curiosity I've got to bring to the experience. And the spouse could be like, I'm at an 8. And like, well, I'm not going to be able to satisfy that. Can we meet at a 6? I might, but at least you get an idea of, I'm not going into these things blindly. I'm at a point of just realizing, no, I really do want to connect with you. And that's what's really driving it. And that might mean I can carry some of the weight and let you be a receiver and feel some of that in a different way, which sometimes for husbands is a different experience altogether, of having a wife be the one that carries some of the stuff when maybe he's not had much history with that, with her. So it's realizing, how do you not chase outcomes as much as you start tweaking the systems slightly? And so some of this could be, you look at what's your sleep? How well are you each sleeping? How well are you exercising? How well are you taking care of yourself? Those are factors that can play into it, and they start to stack up. Some of it also can be, depending what you're on with the HRT, the timing of things. Have a conversation with your medical professional about, hey, when I take these, do they spike at a certain time? So if I take it and try to have sex shortly thereafter, it could actually have a diminishing effect. And just kind of have some honest conversations with your doc on when could that be impacting, and is there a way to tweak timings? Because sometimes we just have to be a little more scheduled with what works. I mean, a lot of times, historically speaking, among people that age, morning sex for many older couples I've worked with becomes the more reliable moments, because testosterone and energy levels are higher when they first start the day. And as they've gone later in today, because of age and stress and whatever, it's like, I don't have the physical energy or the sexual energy. So I can't even sustain an erection like I used to. And so it just becomes a little bit more problematic. But if you kind of just, what's the optimal times, maybe you start learning that becomes a reliable path. Then the other thing you can start to do is, I don't know, they don't mention this at all, but what kind of lubrication is involved, if any, and what kind of sensations are involved, if any, what kind of vibrators or toys may be involved, if any, because you start making the sensations the goal, not, maybe you can use a vibrator as part of the arousal pattern, and that'll kind of get you started.
To an episode you had with Gary, right, talking about the senses, right?
Right,
are you bringing
the 5 senses?
Are you bringing music into it? Are you bringing things that are calming the spirits? I mean, I love having a diffuser going with like some peppermint and
some of the different
right?
scents,
Some scents and kind of the glow in the room from the diffuser and some things like that. So things that are getting other sensory parts of your brain engaged as well are helpful, especially when you're talking about other stressful things going on in your life. Those type of things that can take over maybe some of those senses that you have.
But then all of this is going to still lead towards the inevitable. Yeah, but what if I can't achieve an orgasm? So there's a grief involved. There's a grieving involved. Yeah, that might very well be true. But sometimes what can happen, if not a lot of the times, in the experience I've had working with couples that have had to overcome any kind of sexual shift and difficulty, what they usually discover is a lot more profound and meaningful than the fact that they could find orgasms easily and reliably. Because they realize what they're capable of, and they start to cherish it more. They start to cherish the whole experience, not just the goal. And it takes a little bit of time and maturing and growth and questions and curiosities to get there, because it's not as simple as, well, just don't focus on it. It doesn't work that simply. Yeah. And instead it works to process. We shift it to process sex. And one of the ways we can frame this, and this is what we're going to do in the extended content, is you can have some different encounters that you could call them exploration nights or connection nights.
Doing one or the other.
Right. And the goal becomes, like, the exploration nights is the true sexual explorations, where the goal's not even to have intercourse necessarily. It's more, how do we learn about each other at this current stage of our lives together? Because we change. What was reliable when we were young and first married probably isn't reliable now as easily. So you can explore where the goal isn't orgasms. If it happens, lovely, but that's not the point. And then connection nights is just what it sounds like. It's just, how do we connect in deeper, meaningful ways that's not leading towards sex or involving sex necessarily. So we'll kind of talk through what do each of these mean in the extended content. But it's bringing, ultimately the whole goal is, how do I bring more of myself and my mind into the experiences? This is what Schnarch is really known for, is the eyes open moments. So as part of foreplay, as part of the arousal pattern, as part of the arc of sexual encounters, how do you connect with each other eye to eye, 5 seconds, 10 seconds during it, if you haven't done that already? If it's something you normally do, how do you hold it a little bit longer and actually map each other? Settle yourself down and kind of engage with each other. Not try to guess how they're doing, just observe what's going on with them.
Okay. So mapping is my assumption is of what they've got going on.
It's also based on history to know if it's, you probably know if you're accurate or not. And so it's trying not to be judged, but be more curious and say, okay, based on history and where we are now, how present are they actually here with me? How engaged with themselves and myself are they? Or are they distracted and they've just mailed it in and they're just going through the motions? Because sometimes we don't want to see that.
Right.
Because it'll ruin what I'm enjoying.
Yeah, I've got something going here, and I want to keep that going.
But if I want to overcome some of the issues that come up because they're deeper, I've got to be willing to find my routes to solutions deeper in me, which means a willingness to be upfront, speak up, connect, allow myself to be seen, which is different. And so when you can do that more regularly as part of the process, it hopefully helps move beyond the I need reassurances from you and more towards the I'm showing up for this and I want to see what I can learn with you. And that's a different experience then. That's a different goal. And it will be disruptive at first. Some of that's true because it's unknown and it could freak the spouse out, right? Like, whoa, what just happened here? I'm just trying to be more engaged here. I just want more of this. I want to discover a reliable path towards sex we haven't had yet. And that's a different path then. I want to build off of what we've done and create something that we haven't yet done. Because I'm a different person, you're a different person, we're facing a whole lot. And when we start to realize we're actually in this together, man, that's a different kind of alliance, right? So it's realizing that how does she embrace the role she's in better, knowing nothing's broken. I just need to retune it, refine it, and bring myself forward differently. And I likely will learn more as I go. This isn't something I'm going to rush and solve overnight, or even through one or two encounters maybe. But it is something I can learn about as I start becoming more in tune with me and more vibrant. It's like, I'd be curious, how does she feel now when her libido is through the roof? Does that feel empowering, or is there a little insecurity, curiosity, uncertainty, frustration that comes from that? Rather than, wait, embrace that. That's a great life force of moving into your marriage, moving into your life. There's tremendous energy that comes from that. So embrace that and look at it as a superpower, and then see where you steer it, see what happens from it, and see how he adjusts alongside, because you're going to have to give him some time too, probably, to adjust to this. Because most guys will be all, oh yeah, but then when we get deeper into it, it's like, wait, hold on. I'm not certain about this. I have to kind of recalibrate myself too because of what's changed. And then I got to figure out, what do I do with that? How do I adjust to the new realities? Because when we try to compare it to what once was, man, we set up a dilemma that's problematic. So how do I take what once was and look at it as that's the foundation for me to be better at dealing with what is and then what can't?